It's fun having that little sound explosion in the headphones.
It's a good theme. This is Let's Talk, where's my sheet of paper? Never mind. It's Let's Talk, listener call-in forum, which values the contributions of everyone who calls in to this program to discuss topics of great concern to everyone.
I don't care.
Sometimes locally, sometimes it's national, sometimes it's global, and every week we have a different topic. And I was just looking at our archives on YouTube, and there are, I think, 214,
Wow.
episodes of this show, going all the way back to 2015.
That's amazing.
So we believe your voice matters, and we welcome all your thoughts and views without judgment. And to call in, the numbers are 415-663-8492 or 8317. And when you call in, as you will, because you must, you'll hear a little funny electronic noise as I put you in the system. Just hang on until you hear me say, "You're on the air," and then give us a name, turn down your listening device, whatever it may be, and please keep in mind, this is live radio, so keep the language clean and nice, and with no swear words. Today...
Yes.
I'm joined in the studio. Oh, I'm Paul Raffel, joined by the lovely co-hosts, Shelley Rugg and Stephen Hurwitz.
Thank you.
Hi, Paul.
Morning, all.
Good morning.
And as always, I was reading an article over the weekend, and it was about Good Samaritan laws, which I did not know about. So I started digging a little deeper, and I discovered the bystander effect, which I had never heard about. I guess we all sort of know the phenomenon where people are hurt and lying in the street or on the sidewalk, and people are stepping over them, not doing anything to help. That kind of thing. So it got me thinking about Bystanders and Samaritans, and that brings up a whole bevy of things, of situations.
Oh, yeah.
What would you do in a situation where someone is badly hurt? Would you kind of stand there and wait for someone else to do something, or walk away, or do you think you would, because nobody knows, do you think you'd try and help? And have you had CPR training or first aid training? Would you be able to help, or would you actually cause more injury? Which gets back to Good Samaritan laws.
Yeah.
Which is, in California, there was a Good Samaritan law, but back in 2007, there was a case brought before the appeals court. A woman was in a car wreck, and another woman came to help her and thought the car was going to catch fire, so she dragged the driver out of the car, and the driver was paralyzed. So paraplegic. So she sued her rescuer, we don't know, the car never did catch fire, so, and the rescuer won in court, and then it was appealed, and the appellate court said, well, the law actually says, they interpreted the law at the time as being medical professionals. Someone offering medical help is immune from damages caused by well-meaning help, right? Assistance. And so the woman was sued, and I actually don't know the outcome of the appeal, but she was liable for damages because she had dragged somebody up. So they changed the wording a little bit of that law. And here's the statute. No person who in good faith and not for compensation renders emergency medical or non-medical care or assistance at the scene of an emergency shall be liable for civil damages resulting from any act or omission other than an act or omission constituting gross negligence or willful or wanton misconduct.
Mm-hmm.
That's clear.
It's pretty clear, although it's still got a little...
There's always wiggle room in these things.
Yeah, lots of wiggle room in there. But I didn't know there was that law on the books. I mean...
I think I've heard of it just because, I remember hearing people talking about how you could get in trouble for helping someone.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing. That's a bad situation to create.
Well, and it's different in all the states have different laws.
Right.
In Vermont, you can be fined for not helping someone in an emergency.
Wow.
I think there's
That's
trouble
the other end.
all the way around because in many circumstances, you help someone, the police get involved, it's a big deal. All of a sudden, you're in a system. They take your
right. That question flashes through your mind.
Goodness.
Do I really want to get involved in this? Is this my business?
Turn into a big deal.
But wow.
So the bystander effect, which there was a case in '64, I think it was, of a woman in New York. She lived in Queens. She was a bartender coming home at 3 a.m. Some guy saw her driving down the road, and he was in the mood to kill somebody that night. So, no, literally,
lovely.
And he saw her driving home, and he followed her, and she was walking along, heard him coming, ran. He comes up and stabs her, and she shouts out, "Help! I'm being stabbed!" 3 a.m, surrounded by apartments, and people heard the screams. Some people thought, oh, well, it's just a domestic argument. Somebody thought it was a boyfriend and a girlfriend just having a bad time. But she was shouting, "I'm being stabbed." And then he stabbed her through the lung so she couldn't scream anymore. All this sort of stuff. He went away because somebody shouted out the window, "Hey, leave her alone," but did not call the cops.
No one
called the cops. He came back a half hour later. She was still alive. He raped her and then stabbed her to death. And then left again. And nobody
checked on her.
Finally, somebody called the cops because somebody found her. That's right. Somebody found her and she died in her arms, and somebody else called the cops. Finally. Bystander effect. So that initiated a whole slew of studies in social psychology about how this could possibly happen. Why would people not at least call the police on something? And it turned out they found out, or they think they found out, it's being now called into question, that for example, if someone is like hit by a car lying in the street, or somebody falls or a heart attack on the sidewalk, the bigger the crowd around, the less likely someone is to help, because they all think someone else is going to
maybe better qualified,
be able to handle this,
right? And
they may not even call the cops to come and help, emergency to come and help.
That's weird.
So there's been slews and slews of studies about this, including the Milgram experiment, which was about giving people electric shocks, and finally, you get inured to it, and you kind of enjoy it, and you start blaming the victim. That's always the case. And the Zamboni,
Zamboni, that's the ice machine.
The other guy, another psychologist, famous. Zimbardo, yeah, who did an experiment where college students were divided into prisoners and guards, as if they had to stop the experiment because the guards were becoming so brutal.
Oh my!
The prisoners were suffering terrible psychological effects. They were frightened. Anyway, so that all kind of ties in with the herd mentality.
Right.
You do what the crowd is doing, and you also think that someone else is going to handle it, and it's not my business. And
I remember reading about the opposite, where it was on an airplane, somebody was having a heart attack. This guy comes forward, and they want to stop him because, hey, don't do that. He says, "I'm a doctor," and they didn't believe he was a doctor. I think because there was something having to do with racial questioning, and they actually tried to stop this guy from helping, even though he claimed to be a doctor.
Wow. Because what? Because someone would be sued for the staff would be sued?
No, I don't think it was the stewardess. I think it was the passengers.
Wow.
extreme example.
The article I actually read then was actually a little video, and it was by a social psychologist in Denmark, I think, who did a study. They actually studied real life, because all these other studies, they set up situations, kind of false situations where people were supposed to believe that someone was in trouble, right? But it wasn't out on the street. It wasn't something happening in real life. So these people decided to study hundreds of security camera footage, hundreds of clips of security cameras from around the world. And they found that when people are hurt, someone comes and helps.
Nice.
Right? So the researcher wouldn't say, "Oh, I don't think there's such a thing as a bystander effect," but she said, "Well, it's not. Maybe it's not as prevalent as maybe this is more common that people actually do step up and say, we got to turn this car over and call other people in and help people who are hurt." And
right, it can feel good to help. It can also put yourself in danger, and I think that's
right.
when people back away from helping it's about self-preservation. Making sure.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Especially in fight situations, right?
Oh, yeah.
When someone's getting beaten up.
Oh, I don't. I remember my husband and one of his friends were brawling in the living room, and I'm just like, "Get out!" And I'm pushing him out the door.
Get the hose.
The hose.
He's like crazy behavior.
When you wish they still made soda siphons, don't you?
Just recently, there are so many people on their way up to Mount Everest that they are stepping over somebody that's collapsed. It's like they don't want to lose their place in line.
Oh,
that's how many people are on their way.
Yeah.
Looks like we might have a caller.
Well, So one of the questions in this hour will be, what do you think? Well, here's several questions. Have you ever been saved by a bystander, by a Samaritan, a good Samaritan? Have you been a good Samaritan, or have you been a bystander in certain things? If not, what do you think you would do in certain circumstances? Hi, caller, you are on the air. What's your name, please?
Hi, this is Martine in Bolinas.
Martine, how are you?
Hi, and I really would just like to put in a quick word for the CERT training, because I took it and was really amazed at how wonderful it was, and it gives you real skills that you can use in emergencies to help people, and I really recommend it. And it's one of the great things that are offered locally regularly, and you work with a very skilled team of teachers and get to know some of your friends and neighbors better and practice doing things that are real rescue, and so you can be safer when, if you do jump in there in a situation.
Yeah, you have actual tools to to make good choices.
How do we get into that program? I mean,
what
is
did you
it the
say?
fire department? How do we get into that if we want to get that training?
It's advertised. I think it comes up a couple times a year. You'll see it in local papers, and it's a very small fee, and some scholarships are offered. They won't turn anybody away for lack of funds, and so just watch for it, CERT training, when it comes up, and call.
Yeah,
you could call the fire station. They'll know when the next one is coming.
That's a very good recommendation, because it makes you feel more confident in yourself around emergency situations if you just have a little knowledge of how to deal with certain things, right?
Right, and it can put you in a situation of leadership, because you have that confidence. Then you can tell people, hey, go get help. Hey, I need you to do this. And get other people involved who don't know what to do.
That's right. Thank you, Martine. That's a great...
Thank you. Bye.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
Of course, the first thing to do is to call 911. Yeah. And then...
if you can.
Yeah.
If you're in
if you don't have AT&T
in West Marin, yes. If you can't, then you start doing whatever needs to be done, and you flag people down if they're driving by, and say go to the police station or the fire station or whatever, or call when you get in range.
I think there's this gray area of somebody who's been injured or attacked, it's very obvious in the moment kind of incident versus homelessness, for example. We just look past it.
Yeah, that's a very good example.
And right now in Point Reyes Station, there's an elderly gentleman who's been hanging out at one of the picnic tables by the deli, and you can tell by looking at him that he is not well. But it's hard to know how to help in situations like that. But I did go to a presentation recently about homelessness in Marin County, and there are organizations that one can call to reach out and help people who need it. And he would be a candidate. And I'm pretty sure I saw someone from Community Services looking at him yesterday, but I guess I need to go home and make a call myself.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that is the classic bystander thing, isn't it? We pass, if you're in any city now, you're passing homeless people on the street, sleeping on the street, and, what do you do? And how do you tell if they're just someone who had a heart attack and fell over and had all the stuff with them? And
then there's people with mental illness who can actually be a danger to you, and you do need to be careful about that. I've interacted with people a couple times that afterwards I thought, oh my, should I have done that? I put myself in danger. I can count exactly 3 times that I did that. But I saw a woman walking down the boulevard, and I knew this was not normal, and managed to coax her onto the sidewalk. But she definitely threatened my life
Really?
in the process.
Yeah.
And I spoke to somebody who knew her. They said normally, she's on medication and she's fine, but when she's not on her medication, she can be very aggressive. So, that's part of it.
The dangers of the good
You don't know what you're getting into.
Right.
So, in the course of doing homework for this, came across a whole bunch of terrible photos and videos of India and China, where until very recently, until like this year or 2 years ago, they did not have Good Samaritan laws. And in fact, if in India, helped someone and took them to a hospital, the hospital wouldn't treat them and would charge the helper for their treatment, and then the police come and question you, and they take all your details down, and you're a suspect basically if somebody's hurt. Right. They say, why did you beat up this person? Did you drive over this person? Yeah. But there's these terrible stories of people being hit by a car, and people just watching and walking on by, and then he tries to get up, and another car comes and runs him over, and everyone just keeps on walking. Nobody's calling the police. So they did a survey. There's this wonderful foundation called Save Life Foundation. 77% said they were unlikely to help accident victims because hospitals unnecessarily detain Good Samaritans and refuse treatment if money is not paid for treatment. They're because of legal hassles, repeated questioning, court appearances. They're unlikely to help a road accident victim because they wouldn't like to be late and bear extra transportation costs. Late for work, I guess. They're unlikely to assist a victim of serious injury, irrespective of whether they are alone at an accident spot or in a group. So that's, bystander effect not in effect there. It's just people don't want to help because of the hassle that comes along with it. So finally,
where is this?
India.
Oh.
So they finally have Good Samaritan laws now. Well, it's
good.
pretty comprehensive. I mean, it's you must help people who are hurt, and there will be no consequence. You will not be held liable for their expenses. The police will know, are being trained not to hassle you, not to take all your details. You can be anonymous if you want. So finally, people are starting to help it. And China did the same thing, too, because there were terrible things happening in China. Oh, God.
I know there's still in California people getting in trouble for feeding homeless people.
Is that right?
Yeah, you can get arrested or fined for feeding homeless people in certain places. And then, of course, the issues at the border, right? People trying to give people water. And
that's right.
then they dump the water out, But, it's hard to be helpful.
It's hard to be helpful. Give us a call, 415-663-8492. We're interested in your thoughts, your opinions, your experiences. Have you been a good Samaritan? Haven't we all? Oh, no. Have you been a bystander? Why have you been in a situation where you didn't want to get involved? All that stuff.
Well, there was an old guy that occasionally, I think he's gone now, but as you're coming out of Vintage Oaks Shopping Center.
Vintage Oaks?
He's
where there are no oaks.
He's there at a certain spot, and the guy's got oxygen. He's got the little oxygen tubes, and he's wheeling his oxygen tank. He's an old guy, and
wait, how old are you again?
That guy could die. I usually keep a couple bucks sitting around for guys like that in my car.
That's nice. See?
But that's not really. Do we have a responsibility for a man like that? I mean, to really check out and make sure he's somehow taken care of?
There's the question. Is there a responsibility to help anybody?
I think if we have empathy,
morally, you do.
And if we can put ourselves in their shoes and imagine how we would want to be treated.
I was saying earlier that states have different laws. A state like Alabama, for example, lovely Alabama, the Good Samaritan law only covers the medical profession. That's why most of these laws were put into effect.
Oh.
So if you injure someone in the course of giving them CPR or dragging them out of a car or something, then you are not... you will still be held liable if they decide to sue.
That's the thing. That's a whole other topic, is deciding to sue. Here someone has rescued you, saved your life, and then you're going to turn around and sue them.
Yeah. This is America.
So
just being sued,
society.
Being sued alone is enough of a devastating effect, because you get a lawyer, the fees are high, etc. Has a tremendous effect on your psyche.
But fear not. Here in California, you can be a good Samaritan. Everyone should be a good Samaritan. Should that event occur.
So have either of you ever been at the scene of an incident of some kind, and were you able to help?
I've been at the scene of someone who was actually already dead, but still did CPR until the ambulance came. It occurred to me that this also applies to wildlife hit by cars on the roads around here. When you see like a deer, obviously in bad shape and not going to survive, but is trying to get
alive.
Up and really in a lot of pain. I have done that a couple of times.
What did you do?
Put them out of their misery. Hi, caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
Good morning, everybody.
Hey.
Okay.
Good morning.
Keep it clean, MK.
I'll give it the old try. I'm thinking about this. Last week I got a new mattress from my bed because I'm, needing a new mattress. And then I got a foam pad to put on top of it, like a memory foam thing, and it was too squishy. So we gave it to a homeless guy down by the in Ballard down here in Seattle. And at Christmas or in the wintertime, often we go to the thrift stores and buy blankets and and just leave them in a pile where we know the people are going to be, so that they have access to something dry and clean and warm, at least for a little while. There are ways you can help without, it being a direct emergency.
True.
I'm not in a position to be much of a Samaritan at this point, but I could make a phone call, or I could help out, but that hasn't happened so far. But there are ways that you can help indirectly.
Right.
That's my point.
Supporting local.
I'd be afraid. If I was driving someplace and you just feel so vulnerable, and it's really sad that we have to feel this way. We have to feel so threatened all the time. Because, the threats are real. There are a lot of people around that are not taking their meds and not behaving, and
True.
they can hurt you.
Yeah.
And then you have to pay for your own injuries.
Right.
That's something, if you get beaten up by somebody, you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, that's why 911 is the place to start, I think. I mean, that's what Gail always said. And Gail has been in situations where I would say she saved lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. That is wonderful.
I don't have any delusions of grandeur, of being a hero or anything, but if you see something, you can always report it. You're right, Stephen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting subject, and...
Is it raining there in Seattle?
No, it's actually nice.
It's quite warm here in the studio, I must say.
Yes.
It's warm. It's that muggy kind of tropical almost air here.
Yeah, same here. 80 degrees.
Summer, but the last summer at this point, we could not see the sky. And I'm sure you couldn't either because of the smoke. And that's not happening this year. So far, anyway.
So far.
Great.
Touch wood.
All right.
Thank you, MK.
Yep. Hey, good care, people.
Bye now.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And this is KWMR 90.5 FM in Point Reyes Station, 89.9 in Bolinas, 92.3 in San Geronimo Valley, streaming live and archiving online at kwmr.org. And we are supported by our listeners and by Rotary of West Marin, a leadership organization supporting community projects locally and globally in support of a world where people unite to create change. Guests are welcome to meetings 8 a.m. on Wednesdays next to the Rotary Peace Garden, 11250 Highway 1, I think that's the station house, in downtown Point Reyes Station. Online at westmarinrotary.org. And high-speed internet services for KWMR are underwritten by Horizon Cable, cablecasting KWMR on television channel 47 in Point Reyes Station, Olima, Inverness Park, Inverness, and Dillon Beach. Online at horizoncable.com. And this is Let's Talk Call-In Radio. We're waiting for your calls.
Have we given the phone number? Yeah.
415-663-8492 is one of them. Do give us a call. Give us your thoughts about Good Samaritans and the bystander effect. Two sides of the different coin. No, two sides of the coin of humanity. How many people pass by other people in trouble without giving a hoot?
I'm trying to figure out what that means.
Stand in.
What your
well,
attitude
it's the
means
opposite behaviors, right? People who jump in emergency situations and try to help. And I should reiterate Martine's suggestion that everyone get some kind of emergency training, first aid training at least. Learning how to do CPR makes tricky situations a little less scary, and you're more willing to help people out.
Yeah, they do teach you some very specific, a very specific sequence of events and steps to take, and the knowledge that you have to be careful about moving someone, because you could cause worse injuries.
Well, that's true.
and different ways to move people.
It's good to know how to do that and how to
roll people over.
Roll people or put them into the position. What's it called?
Fetal position?
No, there's oh dear. See, I should remember that, but I just can't. I don't have a memory. But there's a position you leave people in so that if they're in danger of vomiting, they won't choke.
Oh, right.
I've forgotten what it is. Hi,
Aspirate.
caller. You're on the air.
Hello.
What's your name, please?
Hi, it's Mia calling.
Mia.
Hello, Mia.
I had two things. One, I went to the Exploratorium 6 months ago or so, and they had this really interesting exhibit. There was like a bunch of infographics and stuff up on the wall about different countries and different circumstances upon which people would help or not help. And it was really fascinating. I don't really have a complete takeaway. There were some trends throughout the world, but there was two circumstances. One was somebody dropping a pen versus helping a blind person across the street. And so there were really different patterns for which type of help. And there's so many different types of help. It's is it helping somebody, or does this person actually need my help? And I don't have a conclusion here, but it really got me thinking about the sort of politeness factor in some cultures where you might be why does that country not help anyone? And I realized that in some countries, probably you're if someone drops a pen, you'd be I don't want to invade their space. I don't want to, it's their thing. It's sort of each person to their own little physical area. So I just thought it was really interesting, and I don't think that exhibit's up anymore, but I'm sure there's stuff online. Whoever produced that probably has that online somewhere.
Yeah, there is that. I was brought up in Britain, and in England, certainly, you don't make eye contact with people, and you give everyone their own space. So if someone were to drop a pen, or I don't know, if they were trying to cross the road, unless you were a Boy Scout and trained to do it.
You might be okay, I'm going to sort of, quote, respect them by giving them their space.
They don't need my help. In fact, if I help them, they'll probably be angry because they feel so, all this,
I might offend them.
All this nonsense that
What, you don't
English
think I can do it
do.
myself?
Yeah.
Well, I saw that post where Granny was trying to cross the street and nobody would let her. And this guy on a motorcycle stops and walks her across.
Yeah.
So there are,
Nice.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing is just Ready Marin CERT training. They have trainings in every county. So just I just signed up. I've never done it before. So just a little reminder about that. Ready Marin has tons of resources there.
Yeah.
And just disaster preparedness in general. That's a way that we can help our families. I know I'm trying to wrangle my family stuff. So we shall see.
Yeah.
But thanks for the show.
Thank you. Thank you for calling.
What about
Bye-bye.
brutality towards a child in a public place?
Right?
Somebody's really yanking that kid around.
Boy,
Or screaming at 'em.
You start telling a mom not to scream at her kid in a supermarket.
Yeah, good
See
luck
what
with
happens. Man. Oy.
So there's this innate right we have to mistreat our children.
My child, I'll do with him as I will. Right? Yes. I haven't done that, but the late Donna Sheehan did that a couple of times.
And what happened?
Where the child was obviously, in one case, having a very hard time, and the mother was reacting in a physical way, and what happened? This is my child. How dare you talk to me?
Sometimes it's not terribly inappropriate to, we used to give the kid a potch.
A potch.
Well,
Potch.
A potch.
A little bump on the rear just
Smack
to
'em.
reboot.
I had many a smack in my childhood. That's why I'm the perfect person I am.
Oh, that's why.
There's a part of researching this came across this thing called Mobilize Rescue Systems, and there are these packages of emergency supplies, and they're designed to be put on walls in public spaces, in offices, and they'll have a defibrillator somewhere. Does anyone know how to use a defibrillator? I think I do. I think I was trained in that. But these packages have all kinds of things, and if you get the big briefcase one that hangs on the wall in an office or a mall or somewhere, it actually has a screen that runs you through.
It shows you what to do.
Yeah, it says first call 911. Now pick out this green package that has the dressings and all this other stuff.
Step-by-step instructions.
Pretty great.
Nice.
Yes, humans and animals. What do you do? Everyone has lives that they're leading. We all have to get somewhere, sometime. We're all on our way to appointments or radio shows or doctors' medical offices, and if we stop to help someone, it will complicate our lives. Is that...
Well, on the other end of it, I had stopped on the side of the road once, and a car pulled up behind me, and the man approached my car and said, "Your knight in shining armor has arrived." And I remember thinking to myself, how do I know that? That I didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And I hadn't, asked for it. I didn't ask for his help, but at the same time, it turned out he didn't, nothing bad.
He was just a nice guy. He thought
just
you were
wasn't
broken down.
Yeah, but that could happen too.
Max has on a couple occasions helped people change their tire. He saw him on the side of the road.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I think we should do that. Although the bigger and scarier looking you are, like me, the more likely you are to stay in your car and just say, "Are you okay?" Because, you see me walking up to your car and, uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Hi, caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
Hey, it's Martine again.
Martine again.
You really got my attention this time.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Well, two things. One, about when you see a parent being in some way rough, verbally or physically with a child.
Yeah.
One thing that sometimes really works is to offer help to the parent directly. Just very simple. Hey, it looks like you're having a really hard time. Could I help you? This must be a tough situation for you.
I was going to offer that example, actually, but we shifted. That I was in a parking lot, and I was out of my mind with my child because she kept unbuckling the seatbelt, and I had to be somewhere, and I couldn't drive away with her not buckled in. And it was just driving me crazy. And somebody came up to me in the parking lot and offered help, said, "Do you need some help?" And, it really did help to disarm the situation.
Lovely. Yeah.
That's great. And, one of the, just since you bring up the chair situation with a kid that's balking about that, one way to speak very directly to the child is to empathize with them. And in a voice that's equally tormented as whatever voice they're using. Are you really angry and you really don't want to get in this chair right now? And they will usually, if you reflect to them, they will usually just stop, and then from there you can take it to, it is, you don't want to get in the chair, but you know what, we really need to. Oftentimes that will switch them enough that they've been understood for how much they don't want to. But the other thing I wanted to mention is where I come from, the training that I've had in nonviolent communication, it's never okay to hit a child. A smack on the butt is hitting a child. And I used to distribute these pamphlets from Parents and Teachers Against Violence in Education. It had a lot of really interesting statistics on what happens when you hit a child in any way. It's not good. It doesn't work. It teaches them to hit.
Right.
They're modeling. They're learning at that age, this is how we behave. What do we do?
Yeah.
And if you whack them on the butt, then they think it's okay to whack somebody. That's what you do when you want somebody to do what you want them to do.
Right.
So
Control.
It doesn't work. Long term, it doesn't work. That said, protective use of force, if the kid's about to hit somebody else, you might grab their arm or step between them, do protective use of force. But hitting, let's just not do that at all. I know a lot of people that say, "Well, I was hit and I turned out okay," and
right.
But that's not an
like Paul, for example.
The perfect person.
And you're a sweet and gentle person. I'm sure you would never hit anybody. But still, it's just, I would like any parent listening to really get, it's just not okay. There's so many other ways to deal with it. And thank you so much.
Let's do a show about this. Hey.
There you go.
Thank you, Martine.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Right. Give us a call, 415-663-8492.
It didn't work for me, by the way.
What's that?
Giving a potch.
Giving a potch?
A potch is just very gentle little
reminder?
Little thing, sort of a reboot on the butt. I did, the only time I did it was with Eli, and he just got angry is what happened.
There you go.
I had to back off.
How old was he? 23.
Not that old. Eli, if you're listening, call in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I grew up with a very out of control mom, I have to say. Yeah. She yelled and hit.
Yeah.
And could pretty much count on something daily. And so that's, that messes with your inner being.
Yes, I guess it does.
Yeah.
Suggestions about how to respond to emergencies? I don't know if we should do that, but CPR, Heimlich maneuver, bleeding control, yes. Pressure on bleeding. That is the main thing to do. Tourniquets are coming back into fashion too. They were not enjoyed for a long time because the medical opinion was that it helped to destroy tissues. But
no.
And caller, you are on the air. What's your name, please?
It's me again.
Me again.
Hello, me again.
Hi. I was vicious with kids. I worked in little kid education for a long time, and if something happened at the school, like one time we had a parent show up at the school coked out of his mind. I mean, he was just flying. We had this little 3-year-old kid, and it was, we had to report him to VSHS for that, and that's one way you can handle it. But we had to let that child go with him at that point. But you're protected at the school. I had another situation where there's a little boy in one of my classes who was 4, and his behavior was just terrible. He just couldn't get along with the other kids, and he wouldn't sit still, and he had no attention span, and blah, blah, blah. Then I was at a store, and I saw his mother pick him up by his hair.
Oh.
Well, when he was misbehaving in line at the checkout.
Oh, jeez.
Right.
Nothing I could do there. I was sort of horrified, and I don't know if she
that
saw
would be
me or
horrifying.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and it's no wonder that the child was in such a terrible place.
Yeah.
I did notice that he got better after that, to a point, so maybe she did see me giving her the hairy eyeball.
Oh, good.
Staring at her and saying, listen, lady.
The hairy eyeball, when my kids were in preschool, I put them in a program that was through the local city college, and it was very inexpensive because you did service once a week. You had to be in the classroom and help, and by being in the classroom, you learned things. And then there were certain classes that you had to show up to learn about child development. But one of the things they taught us parents is that you can get so much mileage out of a look of the eye.
Yep.
And, you don't have to yell, you don't have to hit, you just give them that look and the message comes across.
Good point.
That's the diamond drill eye.
We always used to call it the stink eye.
Yeah.
Stink eye, too, yeah. What I used to do with my darling children was if they misbehaved, like in the supermarket, where they put all that good stuff right by the checkout counter of their store, I used to sing really loud. It embarrassed them so much that they shut up and pretended they didn't know.
Very clever.
So it worked. So that's a nonviolent sort of situation. Anyway,
you're like, oh my gosh, mom's crazy.
Embarrassment.
Well, mom won't shut up. That's
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody turned out okay so far.
All right.
All right.
Oh, we got
Thank
another
you,
caller.
MK.
Bye.
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 And we have another caller. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
Oh, it's Mia again.
Mia again.
Mia.
Those of us are really passionate about this, apparently.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of engagement.
So I'm like on an event promo binge here, but in terms of like helping the undocumented community, sometimes I feel a little powerless, and I'm like, what do I do? There is an employer's workshop tonight at Toby's from 5 to 8. So if people want to learn about how they can be prepared in case ICE comes to a workplace, if you have employees that are undocumented. So yeah, just a little plug for that. In that, like, if ICE came, you'd be like, I don't know, I literally don't know how to help in this circumstance.
Right.
You can learn tonight, 5 to 8, at Toby's free workshop.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's also the rapid response team. It's more of like a long-term thing that if there was an incident, it's like basically like being a witness to it. So you can contact West Marine Community Services about that. So.
Yeah, I'm signed up on that. You get this app, and then they'll send out a message and let you know where to go. And
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Good.
Thank
you,
you.
Mia. 415-663-8492. We've got about 10 minutes left here. We're talking about Good Samaritanship. Is that how you say it? I guess. Good Samaritanship, or the bystander effect.
Samaritanship.
When it's tricky to know when to get involved. I mean, it's different if someone is run over by a car. That's kind of cut and dried, you know. Oh, somebody's hurt. What do I do? Fights, though. Altercations.
That's an easy one.
I would call 911.
Yeah, I wouldn't get in between.
Yeah.
Fight.
But, there's also the things that happen in your own neighborhood with your own neighbors sometimes, and people don't want to get involved, so they call the cops when it might be nice to just talk to your neighbor instead. But, yeah, I remember we had a fella that used to get really drunk and have loud fights, or he'd be lying on his front lawn, and things like that. But in those cases, I guess, 911's appropriate.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about neighborhoods. You get to know the ups and downs of your neighbors and, how they act. Oh, there he goes again. And it'll be a lot of bluster and nothing else. But, it's hard to do. And city life, I haven't lived in a city for a long time, but that kind of stuff happens all the time. People get sick all the time. People fall over in the street quite a lot. And people get hit by cars, and people have fights, and people are drunk and brawling. All kinds of scenarios when do you step in and when do you just say, call the police or
with 50,000 homeless people in, I think, Los Angeles, there's a lot of need for Samaritanship.
But in direct Samaritanship, right? You're more likely to donate food or money or clothing or whatever to organizations that help homeless people rather than making personal contact with the homeless. I don't know. Would you? What would your choice be, given the choice? You'd go through a third party, probably.
Probably.
Yeah. Or give someone money or food on your way out of a fast food restaurant.
We're not really talking about that kind of situation where you see some. I can see doing it, but I don't think we're talking about those situations today, are we?
About homeless situation?
Giving somebody money or helping them out that way.
All right.
Well,
it could
it's
be.
part of the
all part
spectrum.
of it.
I think it's on the spectrum. Yeah.
But it's up to the person passing by to assess the situation and whether one would be at risk, I guess. There is a how to recognize a medical emergency. Brain problem, injury to the brain, weakness, numbness, vision loss on one or both sides of the body, dizziness, confusion, trouble speaking, severe headache, loss of consciousness, and seizures. What do you do about that? You call 911 and you try to make the person
I worked somewhere where people would periodically have seizures.
Yeah.
So we had training as staff on dealing with seizures. But usually, my experience was that you just make sure the person is not going to fall over and hit their head, and that they're safe, and that you talk to them while they're going through it and let them know that you're there and that they're safe, and then it will be over. But it depends on the severity of it. And certainly the next thing you want to do is call 911 if it looks like it's going on too long. And that's part of it too. You're trained to keep track of how long the seizure lasts and the severity of it. And I also had a coworker who started talking gibberish one day at lunch.
Wow. And
we thought that maybe she was having what do you call that?
Glossolalia.
Oh.
What?
Wow. Say that
I
again.
haven't heard that.
Glossolalia.
Glossolalia. Speaking in tongues?
Speaking in tongues.
I was thinking of it happens to your brain. It's
aneurysm?
Yeah, I guess.
A stroke?
A stroke.
Yeah.
That's it. We thought maybe she was having a stroke. So we did send her to get checked out, and it turned out it was actually more of some kind of a stress problem that she was having.
Wow.
And that she hadn't actually had a stroke, but she
had a little short circuit in the brain from stress.
Yeah.
I had that once. Not speaking in tongues, but where I had, it's called transient global amnesia.
Huh.
Just wiped clean for a few minutes.
Interesting. How did you know?
I was up a scaffolding about 2 stories up off the
Perfect place
ground
to be.
with a piece of window trim in my hand, and I suddenly realized I couldn't remember why I was doing this, what I was doing here. I couldn't remember the dog's name. This was the client's dog that I knew very well. But I did remember. I did remember my phone number. That was it. Nothing else.
So you personally were aware that you were having severe difficulty remembering things that you figured you should remember.
Well, yeah, like names of the place.
So
where am I?
You recognized things, but you didn't know exactly, how did I get here? Why am I here? And what's that dog's name again?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
It was Fluffy the Rottweiler.
And then did you recognize...
Oh, there you go.
Did the memories come flooding back? I mean, how did you notice that it ended?
I could remember suddenly, after calling my home phone and saying...
Something's going
Donna
on?
at the time, I can't remember what am I doing here? Why am I... Who?
Only on that one
Wow.
occasion?
Yeah. Anyway, interesting. What would it have been like in a city situation? I don't know. Would I have just walked into a street? Or I don't know. But, bad enough being 20 feet up in the air. I just climbed
Well, it was nice
down.
that you could reach out with a phone call. That's good.
Yeah. Anyway, that's by the by. My personal medical history. We don't need to know that. We're talking about Samaritans and bystanders. What do you think you would be in certain situations? 663-8492 is the number. We've got a couple of minutes left. You never know until you're in the situation, right?
Yeah, I guess.
We had Virgil Levinger, a good friend of Max, who stayed over at our place quite a bit. Had several occasions where he had seizures. And, on one instance, they helicoptered him out.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
There you go.
911.
911 is your friend. And by the way, 911, that whole system was brought about by that case in New York, the woman who was stabbed, and there were 37 witnesses to the sound or the sight of her being stabbed to death, and nobody did anything about it. That's when 911 came into effect.
I guess that's
It
the
was not in
bystander
place
thing.
before.
Everybody assumes someone else will do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that applies
Or
to things as simple
none
as
of my business.
As simple as a power outage. I always call or get in touch if I can with PG&E and say the power's out, just to make sure that somebody has called them. Otherwise,
thank you, Paul.
I mean, it's simple things like that.
Yeah.
You don't think that someone else is going to handle whatever's going on.
I always think, Paul's going to do
Paul
it.
will do it.
I remember one of my yoga teachers talking about, picking up a piece of trash. If the trash is in your walking path,
Absolutely.
it's your job to pick it up.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think similarly, if a situation crosses your path, you showed up, it's your job.
It applies to all kinds. It doesn't have to be about medical emergencies. It's everything. Learn to be a human being in a community. Ha ha. Anyway, this has been Let's Talk. And thank you to all our listeners and all our callers and all our repeat callers. Thank you so much. We're on every Thursday at noon, and do call in. Do listen every week at Thursday and call in. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Shelley. And
thank you, listeners.
Thank you to our callers and Kay and Mia and Martine.
And KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members. And as we pointed out, we shall be back next week at noon. Thanks, everybody.